Stand here. This is restricted state property. Move now.
I'm authorized to be here. I have a meeting inside.
I don't need explanations. You don't belong here. Choose your words carefully. Ordering me off public property is unlawful.
Last warning. Leave or I'll escort you out.
It was 8:11 a.m. on a weekday morning. The state government complex was already awake, security doors humming softly as employees streamed in with coffee cups and ID badges swinging from their necks. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and fresh concrete warming under the sun. He stood near the main entrance just off the walkway, scrolling through his phone. Black man, early 40s, dark suit, no tie, calm posture. The kind of presence that did not demand attention and did not expect resistance. "Excuse me, you can't stand here." The voice came sharp and uninvited. A uniformed officer stepped into his line of sight, one hand raised, palm out, the universal signal to stop. "This is restricted property," the officer continued. "You need to move along." The man looked up slowly. He took in the badge, the uniform, the stance that already assumed compliance. "I have a meeting inside," he said. "I'm early." The officer's eyes narrowed slightly. "This area is for authorized personnel only." "I am authorized," the man replied evenly. The officer glanced at him again. Longer this time, from his shoes to his face, then past him, as if expecting someone else to appear and validate the claim. "I need you to leave the premises," the officer said. "Now." The words echoed louder than they should have. Nearby, a group of staffers slowed their steps. A woman near the security checkpoint paused mid-sentence. Someone shifted a bag on their shoulder and turned to watch. The man lowered his phone. "On what grounds are you ordering me to leave?" The officer's jaw tightened. "Sir, I don't need grounds. This is state property. You don't belong here." There it was. Not suspicion, not procedure. A conclusion already reached. "I suggest you choose your next words carefully," the man said quietly. The officer scoffed. "Or what?" For a brief moment, the morning noise seemed to fade. The badge scanner beeped behind them. A door opened. Closed. Life continuing inches away. "If you do not leave immediately," the officer said, "I will escort you off the property." Escort, not ask, not verify. The man took a slow breath. He did not raise his voice. He did not step back. "I am not leaving," he said. "And you are about to create a problem far bigger than you realize." The officer reached for his radio, and in front of a government building dedicated to enforcing the law, a black man standing peacefully on public property was ordered out as if he had no right to exist there at all. His name was Jonathan Miles. Few people recognized it on sight, and he preferred it that way. Power, he believed, worked best when it did not announce itself before it was needed. Jonathan Miles grew up in a small town where expectations were clear and limits were unspoken. His mother was a public defender who believed the law was meaningless unless it protected the least powerful. His father ran a modest hardware store and taught him that respect was earned through consistency, not volume. Dinner conversations were about cases, ethics, and the difference between authority and legitimacy. Jonathan learned early how to read rooms, how to listen more than he spoke, how to remain composed when challenged by people who assumed he did not belong. In school, he excelled quietly. In college, he learned how to argue without raising his voice. In law school, he learned how easily confidence was mistaken for arrogance when it came from someone who looked like him. He became a prosecutor because he believed the system could be bent toward fairness if pushed from the inside. He tried cases others avoided. He built a reputation for precision and restraint. He did not grandstand. He let records speak. Jurors listened. Years later, he ran for attorney general, not as a career move, but as a corrective measure. His campaign focused on accountability, civil rights enforcement, and reforming departments that treated misconduct as paperwork instead of harm. He won narrowly. The victory was not loud. The mandate was clear. As State Attorney General, Jonathan Miles oversaw investigations into law enforcement agencies across the state. He approved consent decrees. He authorized prosecutions. He had the power to end careers built on abuse of authority. He exercised that power carefully, knowing exactly how fragile public trust was. That morning, he was early for a meeting with the governor's legal staff. A routine briefing, policy updates, nothing urgent. He stood outside because the building was already busy, and he preferred a moment of quiet before walking in. The officer who confronted him knew none of this. Officer Kevin Bradley had worked security at the government complex for 6 years. He was known for being firm, strict, by the book. Supervisors liked that he kept people moving and did not tolerate loitering. Complaints had been filed before, mostly about tone, about unnecessary confrontations. None had gone far. Bradley believed control prevented problems. That hesitation invited disorder. He trusted his instincts, especially when someone did not match his mental picture of who belonged in a government building at that hour. When he saw Jonathan standing near the entrance without a visible badge, the conclusion formed instantly. Unauthorized. Potential issue. Better to remove than to verify. What Bradley did not consider was the cost of certainty without curiosity. He did not consider that authority exercised without checking facts often collapses under scrutiny. Two men shaped by the law were moving toward a collision. One tasked with enforcing rules at the door, the other charged with overseeing the very system that empowered him. And in the space between them, under the shadow of a public building, meant to serve everyone, assumptions were already doing their work. The space in front of the building tightened almost imperceptibly. What had been a routine morning flow slowed as people sensed tension without understanding it. Jonathan remained where he stood, shoulders relaxed, feet planted evenly on the stone walkway. Officer Bradley stepped closer, not aggressively, assertively, close enough to claim the space between them. "Sir, you need to move now," Bradley said. "You're obstructing access." Jonathan glanced at the wide entrance behind him. Doors opening. Employees walking past without interruption. No obstruction. No disruption. "I am not obstructing anything," Jonathan replied. "I am standing on public property." Bradley's jaw tightened. "This is not public space. This is restricted state property." Jonathan tilted his head slightly. "Then why is it open to the public?" The question was calm, precise. It landed badly. Bradley reached for his radio. "I'm going to need verification and possible assistance at the main entrance." Assistance! The word carried weight. A security supervisor slowed his steps nearby. Two administrative staffers stopped pretending not to look. Someone near the badge scanner angled their phone downward, recording through the glass reflection. Jonathan felt the shift immediately. Verification had not happened. Escalation had. Officer Jonathan said, "You have not asked for my identification. You have not checked the appointment log. You have not attempted to verify anything." Bradley didn't respond. He watched the crowd now. The attention. The risk of losing control in front of witnesses. "Sir, you are refusing, not cooperating." Jonathan met his eyes. "I am asking you to follow the law." A woman near the entrance spoke quietly but clearly. "Is there a problem?" Bradley turned toward her. "Please continue inside." She hesitated, then did. Others did not. The circle of awareness widened. Phones were no longer hidden. Jonathan understood exactly what was happening. Bradley had committed publicly. Each observer made retreat harder. Authority once challenged often doubles down instead of recalibrating. "I am warning you," Jonathan said, lowering his voice. "Ordering someone off public property without cause is unlawful." Bradley's expression hardened. "You are not in a position to lecture me." That sentence drew attention. Heads turned. A murmur passed through the small crowd. Bradley raised his voice slightly. "Sir, this is your final warning. Leave the premises immediately or I will escort you out." Escort. Not verify, not confirm, remove. Jonathan took a slow breath. He did not step back. He did not step forward. "I am not leaving," he said. "And every second you continue this, you are creating a record." Bradley's hand hovered near his radio again. His eyes flicked to the cameras mounted above the entrance, to the phones, to the growing stillness. What began as a command had become a standoff, and everyone watching understood the imbalance before it was spoken aloud. This was no longer about security. It was about who was allowed to belong without explanation. The shift happened quietly. No shouting, no sudden movement. Just a decision made by someone who had already committed too far to turn back. Officer Bradley stepped into Jonathan's space. The distance between them closed to less than an arm's length. The air felt tighter, heavier, as if the morning itself had paused to watch. "Sir, turn around and step away from the entrance." Jonathan did not move. He looked past Bradley at the glass doors, at the reflection of people standing just inside, watching through the tint. "Am I being detained?" Jonathan asked. Bradley hesitated for half a second. Then he answered, "You are being removed from the property." "On what legal basis?" Bradley did not respond. He reached for Jonathan's arm. That single touch changed everything. A sharp intake of breath rippled through the crowd. Someone said, "Don't touch him." Another voice followed, "This is wrong." Jonathan felt the grip tighten. Firm, corrective. Not violent, not gentle. The kind designed to assert control. "I am not resisting," Jonathan said clearly. "You are acting without authority." Bradley guided him away from the entrance one step at a time. Shoes scraped against stone. The sound echoed louder than it should have in the open space. Jonathan's heart rate increased, but his face remained composed. He understood exactly what was happening. removal without cause, detention without justification, all in front of witnesses. A security supervisor moved closer, now uncertain eyes darting between Bradley's grip and Jonathan's calm posture. Bradley's voice rose slightly. "Sir, you were warned." Jonathan stopped walking. He did not pull away. He did not comply further. "I am standing on public property," he said. "You are exceeding your authority." Bradley's hand tightened again, this time higher on Jonathan's arm. Not enough to injure. Enough to leave, no doubt. Phones were fully raised now, recording openly. No attempt at discretion. A small crowd had formed, employees, visitors, staff, all watching a man being physically escorted away from a government building without explanation. Jonathan felt the injustice settle fully. Not as shock, as clarity. This was not a misunderstanding that could be corrected with words. This was a violation unfolding step by step. Bradley stopped near the edge of the property line. His breathing was heavier now, his confidence thinner. "If you return to this area," he said, "you will be detained." Jonathan turned slowly to face him. His suit jacket shifted slightly. His expression did not change. "You have already crossed that line," he said. The words landed quietly, precisely. Behind them, the building doors opened again. Life continued. Badge scanners beeped, footsteps passed. But the record had already been created. Not in paperwork yet. In memory? In video? In witnesses who would not forget what they had just seen. The confrontation ended without applause. No sirens. No handcuffs. Just an uneasy stillness that followed Jonathan as he stepped back onto the public sidewalk, his removal now complete in the eyes of the officer. Inside the building, word traveled faster than policy. A senior administrative aide rushed toward the entrance phone, pressed tightly to her ear. Her expression shifted as she listened. Confusion gave way to alarm. She pushed through the glass doors and looked from Jonathan to Officer Bradley, then back again. "Sir," she said, lowering her voice. "Are you Jonathan Miles?" Jonathan nodded once. Her posture changed instantly. She straightened shoulders, back voice firm. "Attorney General Miles is scheduled to be here this morning." The words hung in the air. Bradley turned slowly. His face tightened. "Scheduled." The aide spoke again, louder now. "This is the State Attorney General." The crowd reacted before Bradley did. A ripple of disbelief. Heads snapping toward him. Phones lifting higher. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Bradley's confidence collapsed in stages. First denial, then calculation, then the unmistakable flash of fear. "That's not possible," he said. He didn't identify himself. Jonathan's voice was calm. "You didn't ask." A security supervisor approached quickly now, badge visible, urgency unmistakable. "Sir, is this true?" Jonathan reached into his jacket pocket and removed a leather credential holder. He opened it without flourish and held it up. State Attorney General. Official seal, no ambiguity. The supervisor exhaled sharply. He turned to Bradley. Why was he ordered off the property? Bradley's mouth opened, then closed. He looked around at the cameras, the phones, the witnesses. The record was already forming. "I believed he was unauthorized," Bradley said. The supervisor's tone hardened. "Did you verify?" Silence. The supervisor turned to Jonathan. "Attorney General Miles, I apologize. This should not have happened." Jonathan lowered the credentials. "This is not about me being inconvenienced." He looked past them toward the building that housed offices. He oversaw policies. He enforced agencies. He investigated. This is about authority exercised without verification. In front of witnesses. On public property. The supervisor nodded once. "I understand." Bradley stood rigid now. The uniform that had carried certainty minutes earlier felt heavier, smaller. Jonathan stepped forward, back toward the entrance, this time unchallenged. No one moved to stop him. Doors opened automatically. Badge scanners beeped as if nothing had occurred. But everything had. The revelation did not come with shouting. It came with clarity. A man ordered away as if he did not belong had been revealed as the highest legal authority in the state. And everyone present understood the same thing. This was no longer a misunderstanding. It was an exposure. The video did not need editing. A bystander clip captured the moment Jonathan Miles was physically escorted away from the entrance. Another showed the administrative aide running out, her voice sharp with urgency. A third recorded the silence that followed when his identity was spoken aloud. Together, they formed a sequence that required no explanation. By early afternoon, the footage had spread across the state. Public reaction was swift. Comment sections filled with anger and disbelief. View counts climbed by the hour. The same question appeared again and again. If this can happen to the state attorney general, what happens to everyone else? Jonathan did not post the video. He did not comment publicly. He walked into his scheduled meeting and conducted it as planned. Policy updates, briefings, notes taken. The work continued. But behind the scenes, a different process began. That evening, Jonathan issued a formal directive. An independent review of security practices at all state government properties. No exemptions, no internal handling, external oversight. The announcement was brief. The impact was immediate. Internal Affairs requested all footage. Security logs, radio communications, incident reports. Officer Bradley's personnel file was pulled in full. Prior complaints that had once been treated as isolated were reviewed together for the first time. Patterns emerged quickly. Failure to verify. Escalation without cause. Disproportionate confrontations involving people of color. Each incident previously dismissed. Together impossible to ignore. Officer Bradley was placed on administrative leave within 48 hours. By the end of the week, he was removed from duty pending disciplinary proceedings. The language was careful. The decision was not. The agency issued a public apology, not to Jonathan alone, but to the public. The wording acknowledged a failure of process and judgment. No denial, no deflection. Jonathan addressed the press once. "This is not about my title," he said. "It is about what happens when authority stops asking questions and starts making assumptions." The investigation concluded within a month. Policy violations were confirmed. Mandatory retraining ordered. Supervisory protocols rewritten. Verification procedures made explicit and non-negotiable. Officer Bradley was terminated. The decision was final. No ceremony, no appeal that changed the outcome. Jonathan declined any personal remedy. No lawsuit, no settlement, no compensation. He made it clear this was not about restitution. It was about correction. Employees at the complex noticed changes immediately. Clear signage, defined public areas, verification before removal, supervisors present by default when conflict arose. The building looked the same. The routines returned. But something fundamental had shifted. Authority had been forced to account for itself. And for once, the system did not close ranks. It corrected course in full view of the people it was meant to serve. What happened to Jonathan Miles was not an error in procedure. It was a failure of restraint. Authority exercised before verification. Power applied before facts. From a legal standpoint, the violation is straightforward. Public property does not become restricted based on an officer's assumption. An individual may not be ordered to leave a public government space without lawful cause. Absent obstruction threat or violation of posted regulations, removal constitutes an unlawful exercise of authority. Physical escort without detention does not erase that violation. The law does not measure misconduct only by handcuffs or arrest. It measures it by the restriction of freedom without legal basis. In this case, the restriction was clear, public, and recorded. But the deeper issue is not statutory language. It is how quickly belonging is questioned when authority relies on appearance instead of purpose. Bias often presents itself as confidence, as decisiveness, as doing the job. It convinces those wielding power that hesitation is weakness and verification is optional. Jonathan Miles did not provoke the encounter. He did not obstruct. He did not refuse lawful orders. He asked questions any citizen is entitled to ask. He asserted rights without raising his voice. And still he was removed. That matters because it exposes a dangerous illusion. That calm demeanor prevents escalation. That authority recognizes authority. That public space is equally public in practice. It is not. So what should viewers understand? First, know your rights in public spaces. You have the right to be present on public property unless specific laws or posted restrictions apply. You have the right to ask why you are being ordered to leave. You have the right to request verification before complying with removal. Second, recognize escalation signals. When an officer skips verification, raises their voice, or moves to physical control without explanation, the situation has shifted. At that point, safety may require compliance in the moment and accountability afterward. Third, document when legally possible. Video does not create truth, it preserves it. Witnesses change outcomes. Records prevent revision. Finally, understand the cost of unchecked authority. This incident did not end in arrest or settlement, but it forced reform. That outcome is rare. Most encounters end quietly without review, without correction. Jonathan Miles did not need his title to deserve lawful treatment. He needed the law to be followed. His experience matters because it shows how easily power can misfire when assumption replaces verification. The question is not whether this was wrong. That is clear. The question is how often similar moments go unseen, and how long a system can demand trust while failing to earn it.